So we do the opening prayers in the yellow prayer book, and we do it in English, each prayer once, from page 1 until 5. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly will I establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. The ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers. It is adorned with Meru, the supreme mountain, the 4 continents, and the sun and the moon. As a Buddha field, I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fields. To the lamas who possess the 3 kayas, I offer the outer, inner, and secret offerings. With my body, wealth, and all that is visible, please grant me the supreme realization, enlightenment. Om Guru Devanda Kini Ratna Mandalam Pratitsa Soham. Whatever merit I have gathered through prostrations, offerings, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate. Unequaled refuge, ornament of the world, your fame pervades the 3,000 worlds. You are the victor, Vajradhara, without a doubt. I bow at the feet of the Father, Chigden Sumgyan. Continually I think of no one but you. Compassionate one, grant your blessings. Dispel the darkness that surrounds my heart. Please bless me so that I realize the unelaborated nature of mind. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma, of the 2 vehicles and their combination, according to the dispositions and likewise the mental capacities of sentient beings.
Dewachen is Joe, we have only Shoko, Dewachen is Tata, Lena, not so Dewachen is Shankam, Sergeant Hamasai, Shankam, Yenayatli, Chitan Tata, Shankam, Yavala, Sawa, you may Tatum, Ravana, Mambo, and so. That's some chicken, Chitan. Nó số cái rất là rộng nó rất không thì rất sản xuất sinh rồi sản xuất sinh rồi mà thì sao sản xuất sinh mà là thì hiện là thì cái thọ sa bắt thằng ra mình là thì thọ sa được dạng trong thì sống rồi thì trong sao đồng ra thì ha cũng đó càng thì nó đó là hiện khám thọ thọ bất hiện khám mà đã bắt đầu rồi đâu sao chào bây giờ cái rất là cái cha rồi Tete China, Yapoli, so on in Kayamina, the Tawlama Gimba, some Jimajaba, Sanjigusa, and Yayoli, Tetabjig, Tawdam Hasonatri, Shankang Kariga Travelina, Miss also Kariga Travelina, was so trash, you know. There Tawagatri, that Lari so Dilman, Dogin Tamchiga Dandini songs, Dewachen Chiga. 상시지의 송, 너희들이 나대도를 용도고사지 지민세는 총송. 대것들이 토닥보신 강마다 로아를 이제 적소리지. 적들이 제발 총로래지. 이제 산속 선거랑 하더라더니 답보신 강들이 이제 산속 선거라더니 답하기 쉽나. 대래들 소유는 신강. 대래 장매 봐야. 대리 종로고요. 그래서 마다 다디네 되니 도메 말이 다디도를 용데 다디네 집에 유모바 쪽 대리에서 뒤랑 하석들이 서운 유모바 쪽들이 로아로 하는 좋은 거요. 그래서 종아 대다 담지들이 이게 샘직 말이지 샘직들이 이제 라게 이제 사적 선전 대성아 다 와지 다디는 대성 마다 봐. 그래서 동보지기라 동보지 싸움을 사월 속으로 가서 그리 이니 칼 야지와들이 야가 매도 로마 부선 총괄로 가서 토리즘 답부신 감담지 빼게서 마스터와 사월 속과 대더니 마로아를 돌아 내각들이 이 송점다 나 로아를 속과든지 마스터와서 했어 이게 좀 맞아 하고 같이 모르겠어. 대회에서는 다 라빠들이 이제 그래서 뭐 뭐람디 하장 동책용용 싸워 이렇게 가서 가라 소부할 때풀 참아라 그래요. 대공들이 이제를 하면 되니 있어. 대하고라들이 다 소속을 이렇게 하면 저 이제 소속을 덮치고요. 적강이 맞아 되는 거지는 이게 형 차수 이제 내 손도 이제 대하고서 들이 적거리 두고 라만나와 하고 이렇게 기체 모여래.
So, my Dharma friends, this afternoon I will explain to you the four causes of to be born in the Pure Land of Dewachen. So Dewachen, first of all, is the Pure Land of the Buddha Amitabha. And so sometimes in general there are many doubts, and people have a lot of doubts about whether or not those Pure Lands and the hells and so on actually exist. And we can understand their existence on the basis of what causes them. And the main cause for the Pure Lands is bodhicitta. That is the root. And then there are many branch causes that lead to birth in Dewachen, in the Pure Land. For example, we need to accumulate merit and purify obscurations and so on. So it is important to understand, first of all, based on what causes the Pure Lands arise. And then based on what causes the impure realms of samsara, the 6 realms of samsara arise. So I myself do not have a lot of qualities, but I have encountered inconceivable great root gurus, great masters, whom I have asked in the past, how are the Pure Lands actually established? How do the 3 lower realms exist? And the answer is found within the 37 Bodhisattva practices, where it says, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. So that is where the difference comes about. The cause of the Pure Lands is loving kindness and compassion, and the cause of the impure 6 realms of samsara are the afflictive emotions, self-grasping. So that is where the difference comes about. So from a pure perspective, if the cause arises as bodhicitta, it creates the manifestation of the 5 pure wisdoms, and that creates the Pure Lands in the 5 directions, in the center and the 4 cardinal directions. And then it establishes infinite Pure Lands. And in the same way, from an impure perspective, from self-grasping naturally arise the 6 afflictions, which are like seeds, like flower seeds, and they manifest in the form of the 6 realms of samsara naturally. But still, the basis of mind is the same. If on that basis we give rise to bodhicitta, it will reflect the Pure Lands, and if on that basis we give rise to self-grasping, it will reflect the 6 realms of samsara. But the basis is still the same, just like a single tree. It has a single trunk, but then on the lower part, below the earth, is the root of the tree, and that represents the temporary 6 realms of samsara, especially the 3 lower realms. And then it has the upper part, the branches and the leaves, the flowers, and those represent the higher realms and the Pure Lands. But it is important to understand that it has a single basis. As it is said in the Samantabhadra prayer, the Samantabhadra prayer actually explains this very clearly. It is very profound and is explained in just a few words. And this prayer is taught all over the place, and I'm offering it at many different places. So what it says in the Samantabhadra prayer is that there is a single ground, yet 2 paths and 2 fruitions. So that is where the difference comes about. So on the basis of its causes, we can understand how we can create causes to be born in the Pure Land, and also how we create the causes to be born in the lower realms. So if we understand how these come about, based on which causes, then we will have an unmistaken understanding on which path we need to take.
Dewachen ji는 차잖아. Dewachen 신감지 다다 신감탑지 강을 접지는 좀 상지에 다당서 그래서 잠조로 먹하면 상지에서 소진처럼 나서 고초도는 잡송에 골라 피서 상지에도 말초 just 이제 상지에 상지가 sempre 상지를 피고 상지 뒤섬으로 찍봐 내 봐서 뭐 just 이제 상지에서 섬으로 찍봐는 말이 대래지 상속 선물 아주들이 다다 딱부신감 탐지 소리 오면 신감 장미바 차요래 신감 탐지 강을 들어가리들은 뭐 약속을 받아 랑그 샘을 들어와요 있어 랑그 샘을 들어와요리들은 강을 들어 랑그 샘 들어다가 샘들씩 용거지 거기에 탐지 이제 찍요 말이야 가자 타대 있는 샘을 저도 참아 로도 찍봐 차대요 제가 동탑에 대봐서 빼는 잡아준다. 뭐또 참아 로시를 요래. 로들 모시는 찍봐서 요 말에 삐지다에 삐총통지 않았더니 그래서 샘이제 이제 찍봐는데 지금 이제 용지들한테 참아 찍봐. 빼는 소상지에 사속서 사통 사속서 못 찍봐에 참아. 제발이 요 말에 내가 사속서 야운 조카가 선부 찍봐 차리. 제가 지금 레버양 대다더니 대상체에 내가 문화만 들리더라 이것도 그요래 내가 진짜 감대 대차잖아 다른 평용 왕견을 좋다 선고요 돼 있나야 되니 내가 진짜 감대 확발을 정말 많이 봤어 그 강의나 전에 다 되는 말을 생긴 사람들 내가 유모가 라 되게 다 삼치 딱 보시면 감 망나야 대상체 죄군의 상속 선자 하장지 생기 유라 영자의 이게 갖고요. 제대로 라는들 민고요래. 랑그 사족서고 또 대는 민고요래 맞아. 제가들이 빼나가서 그 총장 용안하지 말이 대회를 들이다. 이제 상속 선대 도마르고 다 강하게 사지와 밤이게요. 공투지 모나도 지선 저 사지 탐지들로 손을 사지 세워 막으시나 들이 까빠 마음으로 속속을 잡아 모나다. 되게 소사는 사지 삼지 소사와 같이 소사와 직발 사지 직발 소사는 가리되나 세워서 철사 그 요리 너봐 정되는 가리 나지 파로 요리 오 지를 세워서 기억하면 나디들 바로 요래. 야, 나디 요번까지 이렇게 아기서 그래. 이러면서 슬슬 생물들로 나왔을 때에는 오 소사지 마다 가리리 30제도 돌을 내고 요래. 요봐 바라도서 봐도 깨는 세와래 송을 이제 세와라 송을 르가 이송 부바테 파신 쪽으로는 요래. 대회에는 이제 나디의 송을 르가 이서 사와 삼시 유모 봐도 나는 요래. 다 유모 바쪽을 내가 뜻은 고르사와 탐지는 유모 바쪽 세치보들이 대레송을 내버드는 송선상 로아르도 차대와 대들이 다 사지와 밤이 그냥 지섬지 사지 탐지에 따보사 쪽에서 톡지 그리 바도 참에 가서는 소사는 모남 가리했답나 그리 섬지 탐지가 되네 모남 따봐서 미치에서 봐 그래서 시작하고 대모나다는데 모나답들이 모나지 봐세 사촉하고 있었는 모나갈 때 놓고요. 대 러요에들이 대 모나답들 러네. 이 변화다 대화기 시작하는데 시작함 탐지에 시작함 사바다에 인소. 시작함 사바다에 일어서다 대화기 모나면서 대화기 가정대 카페 윤 대화기 샤직대해서 우리들 대화기 시작하는데 시작한 것 자체가 너타적 말로 로요 말이스 베라 사바리스 너타적 로는 나소고 자체다 보면 까빠든 로요리스 대회에서 시작한 대이나 대한 전네 뒤에서 사제 탐지를 나주는 가도 가는 나들이 대화기나 용디 제발와 망보 요장 보나 따바서들이 샘기 봐서 대바지 봐서들이 모나 따서 계속 그래 모나가 또 그래 대배들이 다다 대화기 모나고 뭐라 에마호 요바지 하자자 제보 그 비선제 산제 삼제 배랑서 다 방다 가다 나와다 니바나네 다다 무슨 답을 쉽지 않아서 요래 오페스 답을 대화지나 센스 담아서 산지 담지 나와래서 이마호다 같이 보여 봐 대화지 시작한다 토목만이 봐 토마티 대화지 시작한데 자 사지어 밤에 공부를 잡래서 산지 담지 데려 봐 대답을 해야지.
And here in particular, we talk about the Pure Land of Dewachen, and we already mentioned a little bit about that before. But also when we read the opening prayers, the refuge, we take refuge in the three jewels and say that may I attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So that is the aspiration of all the Buddhas of the three times. It is to benefit all sentient beings. And even though there have been countless Buddhas of the past, the present, and the future, that is all their intention. Their intention is the same. So the Buddhas have all appeared from bodhicitta, and from their bodhicitta then they have manifested the countless pure lands in the various directions, in the center and in the four cardinal directions. And how can we relate to the Pure Lands? We need to relate to the Pure Lands with our mind when we engage in practice. So we need to understand the quality of the mind. And that is our Buddha nature. Our Buddha nature is the basis of all arising in samsara and nirvana. Even though we look as different, distinct beings, our mind is a single basis. It is just like electricity or light. There's many different forms of light in this world, but essentially there is only one such a thing called light. And light is the same. And in the same way, our mind is the same. That is the ultimate truth. Like in this world, light, electricity performs all kinds of functions, but then there is only one light in the end. So our mind is a single basis. That is, it possesses the same qualities. It has the same essence. And therefore also the minds of all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas essentially is the same. Even though we might have the forms of hundreds of Bodhisattvas, they might look different, but they are not different in their mind, in their essence. They have the same mind and the same intention. And the same aspiration. And on the basis of their aspiration, they accomplish a result. And about Dewachen is the result of the Buddha Amitabha's aspiration. And this morning when we received the empowerment, we heard a little bit about that. But to explain that a little bit more, the Pure Land of Dewachen is a very unique Pure Land because now we find ourselves in times of degeneration. And during these times, sentient beings' minds are extremely afflicted. Our karmas, our afflictions are very coarse. And then, even though there are many Pure Lands, countless Pure Lands, it is very difficult to be born there because our bodhicitta is so weak. The bodhicitta in the mind of sentient beings is not strong enough to become the cause for birth in the Pure Lands. And it is something that only we can cultivate for ourselves with our own power, our own effort. It is nothing that we can just get from somewhere. We can't buy it from anywhere. It is something that we need to cultivate ourselves. And that is the cause of bodhicitta. And through bodhicitta and the compassionate prayer of the Buddha Amitabha created this Pure Land of Dewachen. And having formed the aspiration, he came into the presence of the millions of Buddhas of the three times. And for many aeons, he made offerings to them. He accumulated merit and purified obscurations. And eventually, he created the Pure Land of Dewachen. So the aspiration of the Buddhas is one and the same. The way the Buddhas gather merit, gather the accumulations, and our own accumulation has the same essence, essentially. Because what is gathered when we gather accumulation is love, and what is purified when we purify obscurations is self-grasping. So it is very simple in a way. When you cultivate love, then you do not think about yourself. And when you think about yourself, you're not thinking with love about others. So we can see really how it happens when we look at our own mind. What does it really mean to accumulate merit? It means that love must arise in your heart. And when there is love, then just naturally everything you do with body and speech will become a practice of the 6 paramitas. And likewise, if you engage in actions motivated by self-grasping, whatever you do with body and speech becomes an afflicted samsaric activity, the cause for the 3 lower realms or the 6 realms of samsara. So the Buddha Amitabha formed the aspiration to create this Pure Land. He came into the presence of the Buddhas of the 3 times. He cultivated the mind of bodhicitta in the beginning. Then he accumulated merits throughout 3 countless aeons. And in the end, finally, his aspiration was accomplished. So his aspiration said that there should be a pure land where even ordinary sentient beings can be born if they only pray and have faith. So that was the prayer. And this prayer was made on the basis of bodhicitta, and therefore it was accomplished. And the Pure Land of Dewachen is special also because of all the other Pure Lands. It is actually the newest Pure Land. So in terms of Pure Land time calculation, one aeon, like a fortunate aeon, one of our fortunate aeons, is 1 day in the Pure Land of Dewachen. And so this Pure Land of Dewachen was created only a week ago, 7 days ago. So it is the newest Pure Land. Of course, 1 week in the Pure Lands is 7 aeons in our time calculation. So 7 aeons ago, the Pure Land of Dewachen was created, and it is the newest of the Pure Lands. And having been created, the Buddhas of the 3 times praised and were overjoyed. And of all the Pure Lands, this special Pure Land of Dewachen was born. And even ordinary sentient beings can be born there if they only pray and if they only cultivate faith in this Pure Land. So as an expression of the Buddhas of the 3 times praise and rejoicing in this Pure Land, they all exclaimed Emaho. And Emaho is the beginning of all the prayers to be born in Dewachen. It begins with Emaho. It is a sign that all the Buddhas were overjoyed and praised the Buddha Amitabha's aspiration. So the Emaho that marks the beginning of the prayer to be born in Dewachen is like the like a piece of like calling the Pure Land, calling this aspiration as pure and refined as a piece of gold. So it is a very special Pure Land, praised by all the Buddhas, and a creation of the Buddha Amitabha's aspiration.
내가 제일 시작한데 필용 속에송 사지 샤자트에서 도주에서 정말이 그리고 밤에도 진행해서 시작하고 필용 내가서가 사지 샤자트에서 말이 샤자트에 대해서 더 강의를 뭐 이제 저 아빠 마음을 고니 사지가 밤에 콜로지를 잡았지 일감이 낙자가 된바 사지 좀 되는데 루보 잡지들지 대 킬로지지 아지 콩나마 잡아서 루보를 들어가 담책라더니 일감이 생기게 되면고 낭요리 대가 모르는 것들이 다다양들이 내가 지금 하다가 밤에 너 사지 좀 되는데 그 송발이 되게 확보됐더니 남과 중요한들이 진짜 뭐 이제 송대리 클리와 그래.
And so who explained the benefits of the Pure Land of Dewachen? It was actually the Buddha Shakyamuni himself. The Buddha Shakyamuni explained the benefits of Dewachen in various sutras, like the Amitabha Sutra or the Avalokiteshvara Sutra, and other texts explaining the benefits of the Pure Lands and so on. And the reason why the Buddha Shakyamuni explained the benefits of Dewachen is because many aeons in the past, there was a time when the Buddha Amitabha was born as a wheel-turning king. And the Buddha Shakyamuni at that time was born as this king's minister, like a Brahmin minister. So they shared a very special samaya of king and minister with each other, and together they engaged in the welfare of sentient beings. And because of this very special connection, now the Buddha Shakyamuni was the one who explained the benefits of Dewachen, like in the Amitabha Sutra and so forth. And it is a practice that is actually agreed upon and trusted throughout all the different Buddhist practices or lineages.
Dewachen Zola, Ding Sojingsa led, Dewachen Shinkuta, Sajio, Bami, Yundi, Dela about Dane, oh, Shangteratin, Tangwa Deba, Deba, Yichideba, some, Debakan not really, Debachi, or Shangter, Deba, or the Venetin, this Sojingsa led, this Sojingsa led, Dewachen Shinkuta, Yundi, I keep on Mango Yuri. 옛날에 다다면서 명물 뒤는 가리리 다다다면서 잡을 jakhab은 소 jakhab카시는 라왕 요리 대지 요리 우리 사다라더니 우리 대화지 생각하고 찾아보라고 요리지 남세기 소소로 가자 탐지를 속송 그 동네 배나 다 좋아주고 몇절 당계배 대화들 듣고 요리 이제 띵하고 대화대 자이 차를 떠올 차려 요 말이 대화 진짜 하는 몇절 당 차와래 이 제발 가이게 쇼트를 되네 잠을랭들 머리 토바대요 산속생이 차시가 되네 짐바다 저점 조바 중지 레서바 타는 힘이 린적성 맞다고 했더니 머리로 못해 토크 요래 차장성 같더니 먹이와 되냐데 기와서 먹이와 냠들 배나 다진자 개파요면은 다들 바테라들이 소파가 소마테라 등에 나바라서지 요구요래 대화야 요바라 등에 요바 그래서 뭐 당시나 대화도 등에 리바들라더니 잠는 레저 사바데 준비 걸어 살로 도시위나 근데 다다랑 막 등에 좀 먹이와 니모들 레스 대화도 저 사적 생기는지 레스 싸우더니 좀 내서 하고 봐. 저는 저는 레저 사바더니 송치 요래 연티 쳐보 요래 맛이 나네더니 대화 탐지 동의를 결론 연로 요래 론도 보당 총망 토당이라 대해라 되네더니 동의를 결론 하고 연로 요래 싸우는 땅에 지나 동의 탐지야 대화를 접하고 요래 별라 땀블라게 받아와 갑자기 흔들지나 하자 대원래 건지 좀 별로 가서 답지나 라마게위신이 진짜 종황을 로지셔 되나 이걸 좋아하고는 또 장가리들다 종황을 빼지 보도 단념이지 저도 좋아할 적에도甚至 팽거도 또 하자 집어래서 드디어 랍탑 보여래 가시들 나서 깨그 요래 빼제다버들 저는 삼노동으로 눈빛에 톡 요래 그 능가가서라 토요 빼나 저기 다단도 봐 저는도 밖에 대화식 시작하고 요티 일을 돼 메시지 동해지네 이제 뒤들 채들 척박이 봐 너네 들이라고 대화식 시작하라 대파도 못 받게 보고 요래 로디 요거래 저 채지 사주고 빼를 빠사 잡아가 송거이 채들을 신의 주방면이 소요래 채들을 신의 사람들이 주다 붙이도 양이 제네요 대라 대화서 등에 지마 차요 요래 대외로 통 대파 같이 보래 대라 대파 나니 다음 대파스 윤띵징을 근데 통화 사지 어바를 윤띵징 거 요래 저는 사지 탐지의 용어第3점 맞아와 강리 망보 요래 되네야 신바다 제와 느바 천도를 됐음 기바 제와 느바선 요와들 상계지 기바 강을 새끼 탑지게 레저 넘버 메바 차트 타완 챙겨요. 저는 사지를 기바 니송 졌다면 기바들은 호대 탐지 추탐지 못 보았던 정말 맞아봐 다소 노래 뭐 정말 말로 돈이 하고 요래 다음에 봐 돈이 하고 요래 대체 다른 게 봐. 대 말을 장들이 생동반이 내가 그래 나도 나만서 샤네 되게 기와서 뭐래 가셔도 똑바로 만나서 올라들 뒤에서 깨지거든 저는 처럼 따라 들이 대도 나만서 야 답보신 하면 사실 생각 매인 거요 말도와도 네 몸도 매인 거를 야이다 들어라서 봐 깨지거든 저는 처럼 따라 좀들서 안매 봐서 그것도 좀들서 안매 봐서 공부하니 인상 좀들양 통하여와 저렇게 집에 봐서 사진은 집에 있어 네 돈이 하고는 망고 요리데 좀들 사실도 하고는 하장 공부를 네 라담다 기와가 배용을 해서 몇개월이 니맥담 시를 차신 차이 네 사진마도 책이 온 말이 차신 차와이 매나 벨로도 속자 차신 차와 좀매 박하면 생기기 담시게 대도 나반비 받아 강에서 대삼지 점에 받지 요 말이 뒤져서 제발 정신이 버지 마서 너무 사제는 집에 용어 뛰는 싸움하잖아 되게 뛰는 파바타 강에 들다면서 내반이도 뛰는 파비요래 내반이도 뛰는 파는 것도 가르치고 요래 그것도 준비를 해와매 봐서 핀치 다이 이낭도 뭐보다 세마 내반 진이 종대 준비해서 저 강에 인fin소한테 내가 인fin소 된 거를 인fin이 내가 저래서 라지 이거라 펜베 내가 저 동네 just 다지리스 때 하고서나 그리고서 그것도 하고 들이 지지를 때문에래서 다지다 님뭐 네 종래서 이나 고조랑 라는 데그거리서 이는 때와지는 말아 펜게도 없어하고 그러면 이제 지지를 대학교를 때 이치기 때 와지 이 강아지는 사실을 내바지세라 이 시절이요 내바지로 강아지는 또 많이 봐 남에 봐 조사망고 하고 요리지 다 매장 눈이 사실 타와지 하고 가고 상지마도 가서 라빠마도 또 듣고요 말때 사실 집에 있으라 살롱 땅에 사지 공부하다 삼점을 잡아야 하거나 근데 사지 송강은 자선매가 잘 그러했지 왜 다같이 봐지
And so the first cause to be born in Dewachen is to visualize the support that is the field of accumulation, and that is to bring to mind the Pure Land of Dewachen and the qualities of the Buddha Amitabha, and to recollect them with faith, with three types of faith: the clear faith, longing faith, and trusting faith. So we bring to mind this field of the Dewachen, the field of the Buddha Amitabha. And in general, there are many explanations about that elaborate on those qualities of Dewachen. But just to explain it in brief, what makes it a very special place of happiness is that the happiness experienced in Dewachen arises naturally. So, for example, now in our world, we might experience happiness, for example, in a country that is free and there is much happiness. It seems to be like a pure land, actually. And however, the beings who experience the happiness there also actually need to work hard for this happiness. So it doesn't come naturally to them, but it requires an effort. It is an effortful accomplishment as they make their living in this world. So the happiness that is experienced in Dewachen, not only is it effortless, but also it is like hundreds and thousands times a greater experience of joy. And already now, as human beings, as precious human beings being born in this world, we are actually very fortunate, but it is just a fraction of bodhicitta that has led to the birth of a precious human being. So we have cultivated some bodhicitta and we have practiced generosity, patience, and morality. For example, it is said every time we practice a one-day vow, like a nyingne, we obtain the cause of a precious human body. But then once we have a precious human body, while we do experience happiness, we also experience suffering. Because there are all kinds of thoughts that always arise in our mind, virtuous and also non-virtuous thoughts. And based on our self-grasping, then all kinds of negative thoughts arise, and therefore, along with our happiness, we also experience a great deal of suffering in this life. And this is the like the experience that we have as human beings in this world. And when you think about your own experience as a human and understand the workings of karma, and you find that, I experience this problem, then you know that my problem now arises from my own negative emotions and karmas. And my happiness is the quality of bodhicitta. So you can gain an understanding of karma with great clarity in your mind. And if you have this clarity of knowing karma, then you are able to tolerate your difficulties and you can transform suffering into happiness. Because normally we do that the other way around. Those things that we strive after and think that those things that bring us happiness, like our own body, our wealth, our family, our power and might, all of those things actually in the end can become the causes of our own suffering. So by understanding karma, we can transform suffering into happiness. For example, like Milarepa, who endured many hardships, but still he was the most happy person. Or for example, in the past, many great lamas have been in prison for about 20 years. But if you would ask them, now, how was your experience in prison? Then they would answer, it was the best time, it was nice, because I am able to practice, and by doing that also there are many opportunities to benefit sentient beings by laboring in prison and so forth. So they had that perspective. And then there is others in prison who were overwhelmed and they committed suicide. So we can see how one's experience really depends on our way of perceiving things. And with our own perception, we can transform our own experience. So therefore, we should bring to mind the good qualities, for example, of Dewachen. It is our own perception. And then think about, compare this happiness to this life, bring to mind the suffering of a samsaric existence. And by doing that, you should become free of the attachment to this life. And first of all, really cultivate a wish to go to the Pure Land of Dewachen. So you bring to mind the qualities of the Pure Land and you cultivate an aspiration, a wish to go there. And in order to go there, you also must first turn away from the clinging attachment to this life. The Sakyabhas have also said, whoever is attached to this life is not a true Dharma practitioner. So we might engage in practice, but then we experience in our lifetime both happiness and suffering, and we might become attached to the happy experiences of this life. So in the beginning, therefore, it is important to cultivate faith. The first faith is the clear faith, and clear faith means to recollect the qualities of the Pure Land and of the Buddha Amitabha. So then when you think about the qualities of Amitabha, his qualities are the same as all the Buddha's enlightened qualities. And even though those qualities are many and inconceivable, in brief, they are subsumed within the all-knowing wisdom, then the great compassion, and the power to grant protection. And all the Buddhas have this quality. That is what we call a Buddha. So with their omniscient wisdom, the Buddhas know the karmas and ripening of all sentient beings. They know and can see their karmas in its very fine, in its finest way. So the Buddhas possess a twofold knowledge. One is to know things as they are, and the other one is to know all things there are, the extent of things. And so to know things as they are means that the Buddhas have realized the nature of all phenomena in samsara and nirvana, that these phenomena, all that appears, lacks any true substantial existence. So they have realized emptiness and that there is no self. And even though they have realized that, even though they understand emptiness, from within that understanding of emptiness also, they have a very refined understanding of the workings of karma. So even though things are empty, within this emptiness, there appears many thoughts in the minds of sentient beings. Virtuous thoughts and non-virtuous thoughts that lead to virtuous and non-virtuous actions or karmas. And that is what makes the mind of beings become like ice, frozen. So knowing the workings of karma, they also know that if they cultivate bodhicitta, then their minds will ripen into the Pure Lands. But if they cultivate the 6 afflictions, then what will ripen is the 6 realms of samsara. So it is a reflection of our inner thought. Whatever arises is the reflection of our inner thought. And that knowledge is the conventional truth, the infallibility of karma, cause and effect. So even though they understand that things are empty, they also clearly see the workings of karma, cause and effect, because they possess the twofold knowledge. For example, there might be other practitioners who do understand emptiness, that is, to understand how things really are, the nature of things. But even though you might understand emptiness, it is still very difficult to understand and see the finest workings of karma, cause and effect. That is very difficult, very rare. And only the Buddhas are able to see the most subtlest workings of karma, cause and effect. And we are able to see it to some extent, but only the coarse workings of our, like understanding the shortcomings of non-virtuous actions and so forth. So we cannot see the fine workings of karma, cause and effect. For example, we see a tiny life form, like a little creature. We cannot even see it with our own eyes, but the Buddhas clearly know exactly what causes precisely have led to such appearance. And they know that nothing whatsoever can arise without certain causes. So think about those qualities, the all-knowing wisdom mind of all the Buddhas. And what this wisdom mind has in essence understood is the two truths. So we understand the two truths as the conventional truth, that is the infallibility of karma, and that is from the perspective of being in a dualistic realm. We have a dualistic perception of self and others and so forth. We believe in the substantial reality of our own perceptions. And from that perspective, from the perspective of such a perception, we follow the principle of karma, cause and effect. And therefore, for us, it is important to understand, therefore, the causes of happiness. most important, it is the altruistic mind. That will bring benefit to others and also ourselves. And also, we understand the causes of suffering, that is self-grasping. If we only understand that, then we understand the conventional truth. And when you really think about it, you really can come to a certain point of clarity. This is really how it is. And when you really understand this, you will really see the fault in the afflictive emotion in your own mind. For example, when you get angry, you will understand that this is actually only harming myself. And also, when you love others, it is actually benefiting yourself. And so that trust is called the trusting faith, the third type of faith. It is to trust in the words of the Buddha, to trust in his teachings on the twofold truth. So even though some might have an understanding of emptiness, people might understand that there is no self that really exists, but still it is difficult to really see the subtle working of karma. And this is something really that only the Buddha can see. We can understand it on a coarse level, but really only the Buddha is able to perfectly see the fine workings of karma. So if you understand that the qualities of the Buddha's wisdom mind are really so inconceivable, then you will be free of any doubts with regard to anything that the Buddha teaches. So that is the crucial point of cultivating faith.
대외 소소용 띵시라 매외 사노 활동 동고도 땅미들이 이시 토마 감이 제송제는 들은 리팅이 제송 강리 나 매바들 고와 같으니 나도 맞아 봐 하고 요리 하고는 동문이 그때 고와리 맞고 당진지 매도 조서 말이 진치 매바 나도 봐지 다들 좀 여러 단체를 참도 옛날 다 이피글로 개척마다 기억을 다 나한테 다 매점 로로 뒤가로 이피글로 저는 소와 대화를 내고요. 대를 사지 가들 또 양치 토마서 드리지에서 강리 매 가자가 동네에 또 나한테도 하 고요리 하 고는 매도 다 싸웠는데도 매는 잡을래 쇼 드린 송차래 드린 송차도 매들 잡을 그 나한테 떨지도 떨쳐보는도 오늘 또 힘피를 놓고 기마사도 나한테 고지는 내가 차다 대양치 하자 쳐보지 나한테 이보라 힘피를 놓고 내가 돈이 고아서 뭐 드는 거서 나한테 다 드라마다 봐 예스들이 들고 그 사직에 송을 오 돈다도 돈반이 했어 돈다도 돈반이 거듭 준비해서 와매 말해 거듭 준비해서 와매 봐 다디 니모 보다 제벨 레서 번로를 무슨지 돈다도 돈반이 이제 상훈지 제보다 줄진 상식이 니모 보다지 저런 저와라지 되셔고 봐 들려지 제보지네 토마스 사직이 제배 시대 제라의 용띠 많아요 소소 초와지 되는 랩서 대회에서 사직이 제배시 제가 통계의 생기상들을 마치 못 봤다고 요다 요 대회에서 다 담이서로 조사하는 걸 주섬 사직 탐색이 대회 때 민주부터 또 생기 동지 몇 지금 뭐 찾기로 오는 어디 사직 탐색 또 되는 거요 하고 우리 대회들이 다음에 봐도 사직이 제배 용띠 제배 통계 이제 번째들이 사직 롱가당 쪼그쪼그 이제 저 동시 봐. 쪼그이나들이 조트버거 지와트버거 야 나소트버거 당선 지팅 하라라서 진짜 차바니 마다와 지금스테션 타토 탐제 피바다 되지 중대 요바 탐제 상속을 생각하는 인들이 있나 무슨 저기와리 내가 진이 생각 매니양 무슨 더블린드는 통치세 줘봐리 대답을 다음에 대봐 될 사실을 우리 이치다 대봐 좀대 이치지 좀래라 이치 봐 대봐 오 산속 첨지 자치 모이마 산속 첨지 삼형제지라 난지 메트고요 봐 대기치 대봐 Dewa tamche je tene de pasam tene 다 Dewa tinche kante de ta musi yola sa jokne ni cha tuku yore 랑 이치 다도 이치 좀 대바 대사를 제송치
And so I myself do not have many qualities, and so I also was thinking about those these qualities of the Buddhas a lot, and how to really cultivate a true faith, real trust. And so what has benefited me the most here, how I first cultivated trust, was in the following way. And so actually I am able to understand that there is no self. So that is something that we can understand. We can see that a self does not really exist. But still, it only is an understanding. Only by understanding that, self-grasping will still not go away. And even though I understand that, I continue to grasp at a self ongoingly. It is everything that I relate to, every object I relate to is somehow related to a self-grasping. Nevertheless, even though I understand that there is no self. And so I found that the very moment, however, you cultivate an altruistic mind, in that moment there really is no self-grasping. And in that moment there is a feeling of great happiness, great joy. And so this is where I first cultivated a trust in the words of the Buddha. So it is to understand that that the root of suffering is self-grasping, and that a self does not exist. However, only knowing that does not make the self go away. The self-grasping is not easily destroyed. Even if we try to attack it with the most dangerous weapon in this world, like an atomic bomb, we can't destroy self-grasping still. So it is very powerful. But I found that in the very moment I cultivate an altruistic mind, it is gone all of a sudden. And that I found quite amazing. In that very moment I think of others and there is an altruistic thought, it is completely gone. So that really is the antidote to self-grasping, and there is nothing else in this world that could possibly destroy self-grasping. Nothing else can make you part from self-grasping. And based on that, I really began to trust in the words of the Buddha. And then the Buddha also taught the ultimate truth. Ultimately, he said everything is empty. On the conventional level, there is karma, and karma is infallible. And that means if I engage in action based on self-grasping, there will be a real experience of the 6 realms of samsara. But ultimately, he said, all things are empty. And how they become empty, how I realized that, is by actually first cultivating loving kindness and compassion. Because when that arises, then the affliction all of a sudden melts like ice melting. And that I found quite amazing, how compassion just makes the affliction melt away. So that is the quality of the Buddhas. So first, the Buddhas have realized that with their omniscient wisdom. And this is how I first cultivated trust in the Buddha's qualities. So then the second quality of the Buddhas is their great compassion, the loving compassion for all beings. And that is like a mother loves her only child. And with that love, the Buddhas have all the Buddhas of the 3 times have accumulated merit throughout 3 countless aeons until they attained enlightenment. So that great love is what we called before the power of the Tathagatas, of the Buddhas. And because it is the power of the Buddhas to which we are connected, if only one person prays, then the power of all the Buddhas will come to support that person. So that is the great power of the Buddha's enlightened activities. So then from their great love comes their support, the enlightened activities. And they manifest in the form of some Bhogakayas and Nirmanakayas, which are the two Rupakayas, in order to benefit sentient beings. And in this world, for instance, the Nirmanakayas appear in many different forms. For example, there is the incarnated Nirmanakaya, and there is the created Nirmanakaya, there is the manifold Nirmanakaya, and that is anything basically in this world that brings benefit to beings. For example, there is the clouds, and there is the rain, the sun and the moon, there is the trees and the grain, the crops, and so forth. All of that brings benefit to beings, even in the slightest way, is a manifestation of the bodhicitta of the Buddhas. So even if we do not have a direct perception of the Pure Lands, we can experience it, even in this world. So in this way, cultivate faith, the three types of faith, and especially the trusting faith, that is to trust in karma, and especially to trust in the preciousness of bodhicitta, and to know that if I cultivate bodhicitta, self-grasping will go away. It is the only cause of all unhappiness. So on the basis of that, you can understand how the Pure Lands can really actually exist, since they are a manifestation of bodhicitta. So if you think in this way, faith arises. And so in the beginning, when you recollect the qualities of the Pure Land, you need to cultivate these three types of faith.
Say Saji Kutam Gelu Sum, say Consortium. Mangatamini Rangi, Saji Rangi Kimi Shirap, Tushiba, Sabat and Niji, Sajok Sam Diri. The day you go with it, Ginduri, the Luna is to Tadarantri, Tabjik Yaran Jordi, Gendru Bas, Muni Sajok to the Gula, Shaba may put up these jobs. 이 산책선비 주통지오라 내가 털게 되어 유미체가 다속 산지의 공방 산지 시바에 강의제 산책 성당 유명도 로도 유라 당디는 우보다 세마르도 똑같아 협도고 요리 이선배비 시동도서 이선배가 시바데 상계 그리고 샘지 산지 삼체 토도 예미바 다니 이선배바 혼대 예미바 네 제보차 제에서 상지에 내가 다다 사지야 사족선 남아 이시 사족선 남아 이제 고독 사족선 나 진지를 로자를 맞지 준치 매바 인fin을 로지나 고독 사족선 대리 인fin을 로지 맞지 받지나 들이 나지 있어매바 이시 하고 노래 저 내려군에서 이런 말은 나파 이매바 이제 속 이거나 이매바 동동을 그래서 맞다 상계에서 동당계 있으면 시제 대다고 또단 네바 열이 또 네바데 쓰는 요를 들식도 뭐지 사지 또디게 생기 남는 상계 샘데 요리 상계가 저 요소 그러니까 샘디 다다다지는 처럼 따로 차대 대셔송상 이 잡수쳐서 좀 빠차네 이러면서 리퀴드는 좀 거요래 대다고 또단 네바 어쩌면 잡촌들이 상기에서 보니까 열에 대회에서 내가 적극 공부 같은 사지고 일어서 봐라 내가 속을 나빠 잡아라 사지에 보면 자송도 없고 전부 지금 감탑지 잡들 뒤고 있더라들이 감 차지 나서 나와 잡아 요 사람들이 용기 퍼서 봐 내가 진심고 당가지고 같이 저도 어쨌든 생명 양당에서 보나 들이 하바들이 샤르트고 요래 세나 라미 무슨 드럽디고 베라 이 대식도 뭐 코랑당 사속성을 하죠 요배 라미세부터 샤르트고 요래 들이 대라들이 다 대라 이 소영사데 다 대라 저속사를 정도 현재를 가르치고도 다 무슨 진체 매파 취직이 자강 제나양 호와다지 치는 파생조 생고마로 소소 치는 데니 이나드마 디리 이나드마디 다다 누나 창차와서 주기자와서 하는 소고요래 이 묘모바 쪽지 니보차리 요래 가브리 잔불라서 제파나라서나 ngajarga bo changsawa wotoso tapsu drone mishipa desini lumbu ngajari rang ni ba kang me wala then chap chol mishipa de lumbu ngajari wotoso tepachi wa de chak kami tepachi go yole ngajarga bo changsawa yina do chata selni mo choban be yina 그 세상 나가서 봐 뉴모 봐 라고 봤지나 대상지 뉴모 봐도 시작부터 하고네 중에 봐 하고 샤도 그요래 샤는 이제 뭐 실적도 그요래 너무 힘들죠 그요래 라는 사속서 봐는 힘들죠 그요래 그래서 하가 따도록 이 실적도 그요래 저 샤프이 나왔어 그 독주지 차도리 그 취지의 강그 자와체는 뉴모 충충 규칙이 말아주 내용 거요리 탐지의 줄에 빼놓고 내 세계 중국들이 다 최선을 잡으려는 약합 펜션이나 donc 대개 연구요리 근데 주로 나거나 대개 연구 중 탐지 차도를 봐도 뭐 직접 요 말이 차도는 뭐 이세라고 하잖아 이세 여러 번째 들이 강의들 취당 적인 사 강의장 이나 피부다 내가 just 탑이를 이세라고 공부를 강사지게 내가 좀 톱나 자연다 니는다 들이 이세라고 볼때 차도 이거 이세라고 하나 들이다다 너보고니 뭐 주저 콜로고 이나 다 공시에 봐야지 샘진 삼계라 사제의 후보 요장 사제의 탑인데 마디나 잡수로 람데 마디나 서장들이 빼는 자론지로 나지 야토 요말 돌 마디나甚至가 라톡 상자 속의 요말이 대외네들 람데들이 또 먹고니 뭐 주저 콜로고 이나스 들이 또 먹을 집에 또봐 대성미를 사제다 최당 가리나 따와라서 왔다고 줘서 태성 연구요래. 그러면 선대시 이거보다는 태성 모여만 태성 때 인지가 뇌 독실이 태성이 뭐라 태성 독이 가리 사제 원나 메다 내나 마데나 엄마 사제 요리 다 다음 사제 원나 메라서 태성 먹거래. 대상들 양일만 나와 쏘왔다 봐. 산지 양일은 다좀 매와 죽고 돌이창 팬덤에 딱 봤더니 딱 와 유주콜로 롱콩이 방아디라서 와 태성군이 뭐 대상질래 양이는 나와서 왔다 봤지 저기 있었더니 게다 탐지 나도 정서를 게다 인적으로 요래 게다 인점 저거 체도 뭐 일어나서 일어나도 많이 게다 총총들 일어나도 맺지서 봐 야자 같이 뭐 요래 되게 와지 양양도 공동 패 뭐 와지 지나 그래서 는 패지고 봐 그런 진 적부터 봐 배세서 배샤는 강한 야요 왔다 이나도 만데 저 속사도 장소 이나도 만데 제기들 있다 대 파스 쪽을 망보고 장 돈은 뉴는 거를 니 보이 뭐 하거나 이렇게 맞춰 뭐래지
So then there is the power of the power of the three jewels, or the power of the Buddhas that we also bring to mind. And so, in terms of the three jewels or the Buddha Amitabha, these are all like outer forms of refuge. For example, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha are the outer sources of refuge. And also, we need to understand the inner sources of refuge, how the jewels are included within your own mind. So in this way, the Buddha actually is your own mindfulness, your wisdom mind. And the Dharma is bodhicitta, love and compassion. And whoever has those qualities is a Sangha. It is someone who practices wisdom and compassion, and by doing so right now in this moment, whatever they do will become virtues, an activity of the Sangha. So in brief, our actual and trustworthy source of protection is our own bodhicitta. And even if we just cultivate some bodhicitta, it will become the cause of temporarily being born in the higher realms continuously, and also will serve as the cause for ultimately attaining enlightenment. So, what does it mean to attain enlightenment or Buddhahood? Buddha is a state of being that has perfected bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, and by doing so has cleared away all self-grasping, all dualistic grasping, all affliction, all dualistic perception. And having cleared away all dualistic perception, that mind becomes non-dual to the mind of all the Buddhas. When all duality collapses, they realize that self and others do not exist separately. Self and others are inseparable. Samsara and nirvana are inseparable. So that mind becomes very vast because there is no division, it becomes vast like space. So that is the meaning of Buddha. It is someone who has cleared away all dualistic perception and thereby becomes vast like space. And that is the perfection of the twofold bodhicitta. That is, the conventional bodhicitta is a mind that is completely free of any selfish attitudes and that only thinks about the benefit of others all the time. And when we do so, when we have cultivated such an altruism that is there all the time, then as a result of that, we realize the wisdom that realizes non-duality, that actually self and others do not exist separately. And that is the nature of our mind. Within the mind, there is no duality. It is just like space. In space, we cannot divide the space. There can only appear two forms, two objects, but their nature, whenever when the objects disappear, within space itself, there cannot be division. There cannot be any two. And that is the realization of the Buddhas. That is the non-dual primordial wisdom, the ultimate truth. And this power, this quality is a quality that we also possess because it is Buddha nature, it is our true nature. The Buddha had said, within all beings is the Buddha. That means when there is mind, wherever there is mind, there is the cause of enlightenment. So just now, temporarily, our minds are like blocks of ice due to self-grasping, but whenever that ice melts, it becomes one with the ocean. So that is something that we can logically really comprehend. So when we take refuge, therefore, we realize that if I truly take refuge in the three jewels, I actually can attain enlightenment. And with that knowledge, we bring to mind the various forms of the Buddhas, like the Buddha Amitabha and so on. And so in this case, when you think of the Buddha Amitabha and the Pure Land, you can think that the Buddha Amitabha appears as a large form in space, pervading the entire Pure Land and pervading all the reaches of space. And just think that it is there. The Pure Land is there and is all pervasive, and the Buddha Amitabha pervades it. Bring those qualities to mind. And you can begin with taking an image of Dewachen, like a tanka, and use this as a support and have this image then appear in your mind over and over again. Until it really becomes, until it really naturally arises in your mind. And when you really understand the qualities of the Pure Land, you can understand how it is a manifestation of your own mind. It is nothing that exists elsewhere. So if you bring it to mind, it can actually exist in your mind, because it is the manifestation of your own mind's power, of your own mind's bodhicitta. So that is the visualization of the field of accumulation, the Pure Land. And then secondly is the second cause of being born in Dewachen is the accumulation of merit and purification of obscurations. And so in terms of purifying and accumulating merit, in mundane samsaric context, as we engage with samsaric beings, we practice the 6 paramitas, and with reference to higher fields, like the Buddhas and so forth, we practice the 7 limbs. And the 7 limbs are each an antidote to the 6 afflictive emotions. So this is how we need to understand them. So just to explain those 7 limbs briefly, and also this is explained much more elaborately in the prayer for excellent conduct, for instance. But in brief, the first limb is the limb of prostration, and that is primarily the antidote to pride. The pride that we possess is like an ignorant kind of pride, because we are prideful even though we do not actually have any special quality or anything. So in order to clear away this pride, we need to cultivate faith in the 3 jewels, and that is the purpose of prostrating to them. You prostrate with faith, and that is the antidote to pride. And then secondly, the second limb is making offerings, and that is the antidote to attachment and greed. And then thirdly is the limb of confession, and that is the antidote to mainly hatred, but also the other afflictive emotions that arise without any self-control. And so how we can confess them is by recognizing their fault. If you recognize the fault in the affliction that arises with mindfulness, they can be purified. According to the Vajrayana, through mindfulness, we transform afflictions into wisdom. According to the Bodhisattva vehicle, we transform the afflictive emotions into compassion through bodhicitta. And so that is confession. And then the fourth one is the antidote to jealousy, that is rejoicing. And jealousy actually is a very like a tricky affliction. It is always there, and it is very detrimental. It is very subtle, but it always remains somehow in our mind, in whatever we do, either the Dharma or the world. And it is that jealousy that causes all the conflict in this world, amongst people and so forth, even in the various religions and so on. So it is important to recognize the fault in jealousy. And as an antidote to jealousy, we rejoice in the happiness of others. So even if they experience just the smallest benefit or happiness in the world or in the Dharma, we should rejoice in that. Whether this is our friend or someone who is our enemy, we should rejoice in even the smallest happiness that they experience. That is the antidote to jealousy. And then the antidote to ignorance is to request to turn the wheel of Dharma. As I mentioned before, actually, all sentient beings possess Buddha nature. However, if we do not rely on the method, like the path of refuge, then our mind remains like a block of ice that cannot melt on its own. So the ice cannot melt itself. The ice needs warmth to be melted. And in the same way, we cannot make ourselves enlightened without relying on any path. So in order to clear away our ignorance, we request to turn the wheel of Dharma. And of the various forms of ignorance, actually, the worst form or thought of ignorance is doubt. So many times people doubt in the existence of the Buddha and the Dharma, and they doubt in the Buddhist view, in the meditation, in the conduct. And in order to clear away this doubt, we also look at our own Buddha nature. There is no need to doubt our own true nature. And of all the different forms of ignorance, this is really a very harmful one. It is the like the demon of self-deceit. We have no trust in our own true nature. So we doubt about the existence of Buddhas, and even if we think they do exist, then we might think they have existed in the past, but now they're not here. And so in order to clear away these doubts, we supplicate the Buddhas not to pass into nirvana. In reality, the Buddhas actually never pass into nirvana. They never actually can pass into nirvana because their Dharmakaya nature, which is personified as Vajradhara, always remains as it is, without arising and without declining. And the Sambhogakaya forms, like the Sambhogakayas endowed with the 5 certainties and so on, they always abide. They're always present. But in order to clear away our doubts, we supplicate them not to pass into nirvana. And then lastly, we dedicate, because even if we have practiced some virtue, we still tend to cling to that virtue. We own this virtue. And in that way, it is easily destroyed by a condition that arises. So for our virtue not to become destroyed by any condition, we need to dedicate the virtue. Even the slightest virtue must be dedicated. That is very important. And if we dedicate our slightest roots of virtue, then this merit will always increase and it will not become destroyed by any condition. It is just like investing your money into a bank, so it cannot be lost. So that in brief is the second cause, that is the accumulation of merit and purification of obscurations. And there are many explanations on that in terms of these 7 limbs or also the 6 paramitas. But what is important to understand here is just that all of these practices are really only an antidote to our own afflictive emotions. And we take a quick tea break for about 20 minutes.
Ame Dewa 这大的Dewachen的这个语教用做操作的讲的，操作的讲是吧？操作版的，就我说人民节不搞大概操作这个有的，人都操作是，这个没完了就差的有的，东西上的操作的你钱没把操作他不他要他们去把个送过有的，搞的，말하리 배송 세체 초지 바로는 탑시사와 로를 매서 나는 제시 바탐지 그랬더니 추지디 자와 가래 지나 참아 쓰는 문제를 저타고 요래 제 소사먹고 홍을 하래요 요래 필리핀에다가 속속은 낭직하시 무슨 뭐 내미는들이 창차와들라 강이 치고 땅만 창차 듣고면 차지 인지 잘 보고 요래서 땅가 잡던 마송대 섭지절 때문에 저는 게다 가리는 치 낭상 섬요래 르제사지 치가 차래 설르제 사지 망하거든이 가든 로바 와 모남제 바 만나자 놀라서 강로 나사 자꾸지 뒤주 봐 잠보주 모남나 손에 르기창차 맞으면 나거든이 많은 로직동네 차리 대마세 섭지 참제 핀바的 되죠 저거지라 chuy냐미 고이나 저딘 사와이나 라 펜시 봐라 튼조그 상지그 레와 차바들 핀바 땀 참지야 나가 살은 저러고 요리 너는 삼바기에 당 먹이세라스 삼바기에 당하더니 먹이가 당시 기와는 저러고 지 동도 시소는 가지는 속사를 넣고 요리 사나 변하다 삼바는 희지우나 변은 네바를 내오지나 차리 라고 파마를 그렇지는 차리 변을 하버다 주대치 못했다 보면 이렇게 사대기 없나 쌈디 밑에 배운 거 타고 요리 되게 들어갈롱이 배운만 보소네 놀다 르그고는 이나 피부사와 탑이 사가지고 소소를 놓고 요리 세부 삼바는 희지를 끝내하면 누가 사와 탑이 소소를 놓고 요리 이 시선 또 싸봐 잠보서나 같이 버리셔 상 아르고니 됐다고 르고니 됐다고 창차와 돼 이번 초반 벌발이야 가시고 땅나 소소 제주에서 배샤 메스 대사람을 대양 말에 랑은 요바 요나들 나디요리 요바 차상을 대게 니 뭐라 요바에서 뭐 강리송도 지양하면 이발에 송요리 지양하면 이발마다 왔다 요바에서 뺏게 말이야 가야 타고 말이야 지양하면 이발 쪽대를 지냈다 다시 요바 타고 오 되게 동신이 뭐 요바요는 다 따양더니 이나 편이 로다 맨강 들어서 봐 약합을 자살 강도만 돌아 이나 피부 살아지는 라고 따지지 온초를 초바다 이 심지는 전반이 직바 직정을 맨날 로피지 잘라 강에 오는 로바지는 참만 초바다는 로요 대다고 하고서는 오 제체 탐치라고 소나 문제는 로요 오 소소지 동다 가리 소지 저라 오 새끼 탐치 내가 되죠 이제 제대로는 내가 가리 쳤나 많은 저쪽도 새끼 탐치 내가 되죠 제 이상은 새끼 되고 그래 너는 새끼 탐을 피고 선을 로그 그러는 거지 그 탐치 소소를 연도로 그래 하던 같이 뭐 초사부터 그래 학과들이 통돌 다돌 나라서 고사지 용돌 별도도 주민이나 랑게 사나 멋지가 사나 તે રંગ લુગ ટમાપો 생기 속차 탐지가 통화 투바 투바를 봐 예고니 생기 탐지를 타바 사오면 택투고요래 그래서 소남들 다 통고 말이 마통들이 이시체요 말이 다 사제들이 라고요래 인제래 근데 이 시기에서는 변하다 잡을게 참아 배샤가오요 배샤가오 땅같이 원래 로스도 타고 요래서 로또 타고 속고요. 라코르도 배사 먹고 토리 3일 라코르 줄라. 말이 라코르도 이거는 늘리는 삼지 연구를 삼지 때문에 김바 연구를 지왕한 말하고 다달 르도 로또 탐지 세발하시는 연구를 동문이지나 같이 걸 좋았더래요. 진짜 딱발 유출라고 내봤단 그래서 말해. 나타나 가와 소라 빼샤바고 가라 토고도. 가리스는 톱송들 다 라콘던도 요로 토도 마음 빠다. 빼샤바고를 가라 토베치는 요요. 동네 이제 차리 요리. 라는 배도 막고 맞춰들 강님이 왔대요. 사록섬에는 톱이 오래. 내렸더니 성기 성지 지체미 봤으면 참. 근데 비용상 좀 잡아. 레일하고 사하라 동치가 라고로 몇째 몇개 통생이 손은 동서 뭐래 비용나 뭐를 좀 이상데 야 소수 샤송 라고 해고는 포하지 먹어서 뭐래 이따 같은 이제 다 선전 통도 특보 비용 쌈좀 잡았어 뭐래 그래서 줄로 같은지 거서 걸어 생긴 사람들 데이터에 탑내 사람들 데이터들이 남성인도 우리 탐스라 쉐쉐 남이라 이때 콤바미리 탐들 용도 통도 달로라서 봐보니 그래서 줄로 같은지 그래서 라이게 소나서 탑지는 이제 라이가 페미요리 그래서 소속을 나리 좀들이 춘지 이사와 탐도 소속을 놓고 봐요 요리 대지도 모아대요 자 이라도 받는 모아서 전부 만들 저쪽도 오만을 의미 홍 감성스럽게 피고 상태는 만들 적 생긴 사람들을 잡고요. 내가 사진을 좁아 버렸고요. 맨날 내가 막 피용소는 걸로 피용만 보여요. 내가 소나 사바 탑들 내라고요. 사실은 대답을 동시너들이 잠시 대해서 성이야모 오 소사바 탑들 시소나 까마고 와 내서고요. 그래서 하동라 탑만 까와 매바데스 왕보는 그 왕세네 시랍체보 왕세네 탑만 뭐 까미 매와 같은 소사들을 해서 내가 주로 당시에 토를 야내 보여래.
And so coming back to the four causes of to be born in Dewachen, we have just said second cause is to accumulate merit and to purify obscurations. And as practitioners, we think that I am accumulating merit. So it seems that when we do our practice and we do our recitation, then we are practicing, we are accumulating merit. But then we actually are not aware that we should actually always practice, accumulate merit in whatever we do on an ongoing basis, not only when we sit in our practice. So if we really understand the meaning of this accumulation, then we will actually accumulate it, this merit on an ongoing basis. Just as the great beings have taught us. For example, Milarepa had said, perfectly practice virtue or merit in whatever you do. There is no other skillful means than that. So if we know how to practice, then really whatever you do in the Dharma or in the world, anything that you do can become an accumulation of merit. Because merit depends on your intention, motivation in whatever you do. So if you engage in any activity, you can always accumulate merit. Sometimes people focus much on the outer aspect. For example, we say that in order to accumulate merit, for example, we perform prostrations. And that is sometimes difficult for certain people that have certain physical limitations, and then they think that even though I want to accumulate merit, I probably can't because I can't do the prostrations. But as with all the virtuous activities, they all have an outer, inner, and a secret aspect. So the physical prostration, for example, is only the outer form of prostration. And then there is the inner form of prostration, for example, that is with relation to the speech. We recite prayers, we make dedications, or we say just even a single Om Mani Padme Hum mantra. We bring to mind the qualities of the Buddhas and we express these qualities. For example, we we read the prayer for excellent conduct, and so on. And if you have the right intention, even if you just recite a single mani mantra, it is also a prostration. Or anything else that you say or do that becomes beneficial or causes happiness to others is all prostration, actually, whether in the Dharma or in the world. For example, in the world, if you reconcile people, if you make them be harmonious with each other, if you say things that cause them to give rise to kindness and compassion, all of that actually is a verbal prostration. So it is the intention that counts. It is the intention that determines whether or not our actions are virtues, but whether they are virtues or non-virtues. And if the intention is pure, then we can even transform non-virtue into virtue. So if we know how to, we can actually always accumulate merit. And how to is to cultivate love and compassion. If you have compassion, whatever you do becomes virtues, becomes merit. For example, you help a sick person, you become a nurse to a sick person with compassion. Or you show respect to your parents, you serve your parents, that also is like a prostration. Or you come to the Dharma assembly, like to a temple, and you serve, you broom and you serve and so forth. All of these are very beneficial activities which are just like a prostration, an accumulation of merit. So what is most important is the intention, and this is really how we accumulate merit. And so we can see that a prostration, for example, has body, speech, and mind, or outer, inner, and secret aspect. For example, in this world, everybody wants to be rich. We want to have money, and so we will not just obtain money because we want money. But there is a certain cost that comes from a previous life. It is because in a past life we have practiced generosity. We have practiced generosity because we have cultivated love, a good intention. And normally, if we don't understand that and we possess some riches, then the more riches we possess, the greater will be our grasping at it. So it is important to understand that it comes from our virtuous actions that come from a positive intention of love. And without generosity or love, there is also no way that we would have any wealth in this lifetime. So even the slightest possession comes from that. And if you have this knowledge and this intention, then whatever you do can become an offering or an act of generosity. For example, you are offering your wealth to a hospital, or you're just paying your taxes. And whatever you do, it can become a real offering to the three jewels and an act of generosity to sentient beings. It has the exact same benefit. Or you help a friend who is in need, who experiences difficulties. And so in this way, as Dharma practitioners, we always have a method, a way to accumulate merit, to practice virtue in whatever we do. And so, for example, how you can think in whatever you do is that what I am doing, I do it so that all sentient beings may be born in the Pure Land of Dewachen. I will, for example, recite this Mani mantra so that all beings be born in Dewachen. So that is the intention, and with that intention you can engage in any kind of action. And the Buddha has given many different skillful means for us to accumulate merit and to become liberated. For example, there is the liberation upon sight or touch or taste, for example, the blessing pills. And these are all special methods that the Buddha had given. For example, if a person has taken these blessing pills, then wherever that person goes, whoever even just steps on them, like the shadow of this person, will become liberated. So the seed of liberation is planted in the mind streams of sentient beings who come into contact with these forms of liberation. And this is the merit that is planted. And sometimes it is hard for us to believe because merit is nothing that we can see with our eyes. So we have our doubts about it, and we just think that, well, this is what the Buddha says, and it might be true, but we are not so sure. So we have our doubts about it. So then we have to think in practical terms. So for example, in this world we want to have money, for example. Everybody likes to have some money. And we need to have money in our life. So that is something that we can relate to. And then another thing that sometimes people cannot relate to, for example, is I'm always spinning my prayer wheel all the time. And so if I would just tell you now, if you would spin the prayer wheel all the time, you would get rich. Then probably all of you would spin prayer wheels all the time. So this is how we accumulate, how we can relate to the accumulation of merit. And so, for instance, people, when I spin my prayer wheel, they say, why do you always spin your prayer wheel, and doesn't it make your hand hurt at some time? But it's not like that, because the intention of spinning the prayer wheel, first of all, comes from a mind of love. And then I am going all over the world, and everywhere I go, people feed me and make offerings to me. And the spinning of the prayer wheel is also my way of giving back to them, of giving them love, offering to them. And this is why I always spin my prayer wheel, so I also can give to them. So actually, I am in a way making my future money, my future income is my spinning of the prayer wheel. So actually, this is what brings me my future merit, my food, my house in the future. So actually, this is really the truth, and therefore it doesn't create me much difficulties to spin the prayer wheel all the time. It is a quite easy practice. Actually, it is a very meaningful and very easy to do practice. And moreover, it is also said that whoever sees the prayer wheel will not be born in the 3 lower realms. So it is a very special tradition that comes from, starting from Nagarjuna. And also it is said that if you spin your prayer wheel your life, then at the time of death, actually you do not need any separate poa. It becomes a poa in itself. So it is extremely beneficial to only spin a prayer wheel if the intention is to benefit all sentient beings. And so this is how we as Dharma practitioners can practice. And then there is many other sentient beings in samsara who do not have such methods to practice. And there's others also who want to practice but who don't have the time to practice. And so for all those, there are other skillful means that the Buddha had given, such as the liberation upon sight or touch and taste and so on, so that we always have an opportunity to accumulate merit naturally on an ongoing basis. And it will bring benefit to yourself and also benefit to others. So in this way, we accumulate merit all the time, whatever we do in the Dharma, in our practice, or in the world. So also that relates to the dedication prayer in the 7-limb practice. It is the intention. For example, you recite only a single Om Mani Padme Hum mantra, but with the intention to benefit all sentient beings in the 3 realms of samsara. With that intention, this single Mani mantra can actually pervade all those beings, while at the same time making offerings to all the Buddhas. So that also is a special benefit of the prayer wheel that I continuously spin. And the benefits of the prayer wheel are actually the same as the benefits of the mantra garland itself. So it is a very easy and very skillful way to accumulate merit all the time, if you know how to engage in practice properly. So if you know that, if you know the meaning of all that, your mind becomes very light, and you will easily go about in the practice and accumulate merit in whatever you do without much hardship. And actually, that is a special quality of the Vajrayana. It is that the Vajrayana is a path that is meant for those with sharp mental capacities, that provides various methods with the least difficulty. So in this way, we can skillfully accumulate merit on an ongoing basis. So therefore, my Dharma friends, please keep this in mind.
주바다 지바다라 롱다르 빨은 대송나 망보시야에 소소라니는 pompa 채톰 제용 아다 주바 지바다 비 카보리 데나버 타파지 현당 삼바다 무보라서 봐 롱다르 빠 망보시야요레 이 사람은 말라리는 거 멈비로 봐야 돼. 지나나 지바 주바 지바 가래지 신는이 보래지. 어떤 신나 가요나 디감이 주바서 지바가 비용되시는 신나면이 오래. 그 신나 가와도 돼. 다른 것도 팔동 고체들 신나마도 요 말이. 저 같은 데로 가요. 고모 찍통나 뒤쪽 가요. 제 단지 가와서 단지 팔동 고체들 신나면이 찍다요 말. 비샤리는 마고는 사람들이 대를 다가 just 싸고요. 대회는 대나 대시소서가 가리 팔동 고체도 잡아는 거래. 야, 폐그요래. 무슨 취념이 제법값은 노송 참아 집안이 있어야 초바이 있어. 그 초바서 집안 오지 말나. 빼는 것을 찍을 로거나 사칸 공치보나 도나. 오, 제 파티 같은 고속해서 돼서 요래. 오, 고속 근데 집안이 그 생나용 매와. 들 마음과 레버트를 다져 초토는 레버와. 랑그 생나를 내상으로 요래. 팔동 고치는 애들은 사이에 집안을 로건도. 응? 맨날 작업을 작살이야구나. 하죠 지마 치고 맨날 아리 작업 용서하더라. 마트를 정리하시고 서줄래야 통구요 말라. 오늘 작업 작살는 고모증 판결은 작업 용서를 팽거리 쳐다로 작업이 노성도 가리도도 강의를 통해 작업으로 지가리도 가리가리 잡아도 이 사마들 해는 로고요. 오늘도 파노 성당시 레콩지를 팽기요래. 민강에서 매용되는 민강지를 팽기요. 제가 몇 작하면 보면 주제 듣고 들이서 뭐 땅에다 소설 매일 말이야. 요렇게 같이 땅나 집안 사람들 문이 되는 로요래. 이 하장들이 소설을 대해서 가면 매내나 동도 파 강송하게 대도 요렇게 생각이 말이야. 생각이 가지고 뭐 바라세요. 설라님이나 이제 바로 생겼어 우리 대회들이다가 콜로그 비누나 나서 우리 사지 인투 주면체 심지도 용 주면체 달라고 주면체서 한 콜로 이걸 비누나 뭐를 못지 돼 송도 그래 그 가리를 이제 동tik을 내도 달라고 주면체는 소소하게 상바된 힘이 생기 피고선데 있고 요래 어디 삼바당 힘기들 사지 삼지 되는 가요. 그래서 사지 좀 되라. 너와롱이 빼서送了. 사지 좀 되라. 셀 마모도 파나 사지 매가 다 말이지. 십기는 힘기 돼서 지는 사진 좀 잡아요. 송도. 어떻게든 십기는 힘기 지는 사지 삼지 주변 좋대 매라. 랑을 봐요. 제가 딱 해요. 생기는 은혜 제가 팽겨요. 대회에서 운이든 콜로 비용화 되다가 대시 봐요. 이제 삼성제에서 말하는 콜로 비용 대회는 되다 사막에 다 통로 따로 콜로 종종되다 제 통수제는 팽겨요. 때 소소부터 나가면 말이 제가 시소를 제체 초조 팔 나서 말하는데 그래서 너도 주인 통도 어디 뭐 듣지마다 땅다 이 사카 잡대라 control pindu kare dandi nyom de ro dandi chong tong to go sa ji ge mo nam le de tong ji top song go ni yong go yo le rang ni ji le top sa ji tang ji ge sa chok chong go top去年就top de ye le ko de yo ma zhe ba lo bo chao rong da to de ba di shi to go yo le lo bo chao rong da de da ji to yo le 대통령 당시 이거 상회지게 덕분에 너는 내장 내적 상속 셈데 대외 상속 셈을 실내 탐지했더니 발신 조건을 넣어요래 생고마르송나 얘나도 말을 넣어요 속소에 초도 들어봐들이 상속 셈다 맞잖아 그바 탐지 속소를 넣어요 기초버요래 되게 소사 바 장시바디 저 상지 같이 지나 나는 당시 되신 거요래 대라고 나니 사토바 뒤동시나 저 상행제가 맞아봐 뒤들은 소소 좀 정도 做 상행제
So about the benefits of making offerings and practicing generosity, about that there are many teachings and many different paragraphs and passages in the text and so on. So there's much elaboration on that. And even though I studied these elaborations in the past, I still might have had some doubt about the real benefit and how it really makes sense, the benefits of making offerings and being generous. Still, it seems difficult to comprehend because it is very theoretical when we look at the scriptures, and also we hear about, for example, that we need to make proper offerings with regard to the field of offering, with regard to our intention of offering, with regard to the object of offering, and so on. And so I'm rather turned towards a teaching by Milarepa that I found in 100,000 Songs, where he actually very clearly explained the essence of that, the essence of why we need to practice generosity or make offerings. He said it is because it is an antidote to attachment, to stinginess or greed. And that becomes very practical. Whenever there is an occasion where greed arises, that is the time where these teachings become applicable. And when I apply the teachings on offerings of generosity at that time, then the stinginess will go away. So in this way, I found it very beneficial in a very practical way. For example, when it arises is those times when we need to let go of something. Every time we need to give something, let go of something, there is a thought and feeling of not really wanting to give it, or not really wanting to let go of it. We want to hold on to it. And every time we get something, then we feel very pleased, very happy about that. And so that is the time when it comes up, when we need to practice. So it is, even if we have to give away just a single dollar, for example, everything that we need to give away, we have a sense of greed or stinginess about it. We do not actually really want to give away even a dollar. We rather not give it away. And every time this feeling comes up, we are actually accumulating a cause of birth as a hungry spirit. So what is beneficial to do in this time is that everything that we give away, we should see it as an act of generosity. It becomes an offering. Whatever expenses you have can become an offering. Everything that you pay for, everything that you have to give anyways, still can become an offering, an act of generosity. For example, when you eat in an expensive restaurant, you need to pay your bill. So of course the restaurant will have some profit from that, but still you can think that may this benefits them. This is my act of giving, generosity. So if you train this way, you will give free from stinginess. And that in the future will turn into 100-fold result. So therefore, it is extremely beneficial to practice at any time. When you practice any time the opportunity of greed comes up, every time you practice in this way, some of that greed diminishes in your mind. So for example, we also need to pay taxes, something that we need to do anyways. For example, you appreciate this country in America, but even though you want to, maybe you might want to give a present to everyone, you can't really do that. You can't really give to everyone in America. So if you pay taxes, even if you just pay $1, for example, you pitch in the whole pot and it will always be used. So with that, whatever the country does, you have also contributed to the benefit of the country. Any hardship, anything that the country does to help their people, also your taxes are going to be used for that. So you're really making an offering to everyone in the country at the same time. So in this way, you can think whenever you have to pay for anything. For example, you go to a hospital and you pay for your treatment. Then think that this will benefit the hospital so they can treat even more people in the future. And in this way, again, the result will multiply. So whenever you have something, you should also have a wish to let go of it, a willingness to let go of whatever you have. Even if it is not much, you should have this wish that you want to give away. You're willing to give away whatever it is that you have. And eventually you become free of stinginess, of greed. And when greed is completely gone, the complete elimination of greed is the perfection of generosity. And that is also why, again, the spinning of the prayer wheel is so significant. It is an ongoing act of giving. Also, the prayer wheel has the same benefits as a mantra garland, a mantra chain. And Guru Rinpoche had taught that by through the mantra garland, there is a continuous offering made to the Buddhas. There is a continuous purification of sentient beings' obscurations, and there is a continuous gathering of accomplishments or of siddhis. So all of these are accomplished in a single instant, only through the power of the mantra garland or the prayer wheel. And that is through the power of one's own good intention. So I spin the prayer wheel with the intention to benefit sentient beings wherever I go. And because I have this intention, all the Buddhas are pleased. This is what pleases the Buddhas. So you can see how an offering is made to the Buddhas while at the same time you purify the obscurations of sentient beings. And the Buddha himself had said in the Vinaya teachings that if you made an offering to the Buddhas of much gold, they would not even look at it. But if you give rise to compassion for sentient beings, it will put a smile on their face. So that is really the supreme offering to the Buddhas. It is when you cultivate love for sentient beings. And at the same time, through love, you also purify sentient beings and your own obscurations. So that is why I spin the prayer wheel. It is because it helps me sustain mindfulness, and with mindfulness, I never separate from love and compassion. And then everyone who sees or who touches or who comes into contact with it will be benefited. And in this way, there is a continuous gathering of merit. And this is what Milarepa meant with perfectly practice merit in whatever you do. There is no other skillful means than that. So also the blessing pills, for example, therefore, are also a way to continuously accumulate merit. For example, when you mix it with water and then you sprinkle it on the earth, then everyone that is pervaded by it will be benefited. And how they are benefited upon contact is that it is endowed with a prayer of great love of all the Buddhas. And this great love will diminish the self-grasping of all beings. So again, it is accomplished by virtue of those three powers. First, the power of your own compassion, and second, the power of all the Buddha's bodhicitta, and thirdly, the power of dharmadhatu, the single ground within which there is no separation between samsara and nirvana. And since that is the case, sentient beings only appear temporarily, like ice. And ice can be melted. So ice is like the self-grasping of sentient beings. And the antidote is love and compassion. So bodhicitta is like the single medicine that cures 100 illnesses. If you only have bodhicitta, then whatever you do is a practice of the 6 paramitas or an offering of the 7 limb prayers. Therefore, the supreme way, the best way to accumulate merit is through cultivating bodhicitta. And if you never separate from bodhicitta, then everything you do becomes an accumulation of merit. So in the context of the second cause of accumulating merit and purifying obscurations, that is really the practice of kindness and compassion. With kindness and compassion, we accumulate merit and at the same time purify obscurations, because the ultimate obscuration is our own self-grasping. So this point on accumulating merit and purifying obscurations is in essence nothing else but the continuous practice of love and compassion.
조사는 양도 다 기분은 남다서 모남도 가르쳐버리 별로 모남 가르쳐 다 갈나 따뜻한 담배는 소 땜바들 사지 셔자다 봐 무슨 송 디취송 땜바 네 되게 지속서 욕다 봐 다다다 담절도 용사와 네 사지 셔자다 봐 가는 게 되게 사지 셔자다는 나한테 제네요 콩 모남 때문에 콩 모나치 뭐 납자다 그러지 납자들 때문에 토끼 도망 많이 와 사지 탐지를 그렇게 받던 바바다다는 제반처래 그 사지 그때 만에 진 받치 같이 마음 속는 형들이 매런 남자 봐겠네더니 말메시에서 그요 말이 되나 사지 때마다 야 다쪽을 매발당 토끼요 말이 대탐지가 사지가 뭐는 것도 우리 대회나들이 다다 소속해서 뭐라면 야나 뭐라 가리자고 가지게 하고 말해서 오지 나한테 삼바된 hin지를 게 니단 얘들라서 와서 섬에 차리는 거요래 야 우리 니단에도 강섬에 차려들 찌와게 팽기와데 하고 요래 놀라 가리게 팽고 찌와게 팽고래 찌와들을 아주 이가 팽기요래 찌와들 찌와 총총데 나디단데 그래서 나디기 중으로 찌와 침보고 그래서 찌와 침보고는 들이대 나와 탑락해 봐기 들이라고 여러 강한 찌와요나 대다버지 코와 토마미 바는 것서 찌와 강미 발랑이 오베나 그 파마마지 봐 니들마지 봐 직장이와 말이지 대회는 별로 못하다 라나 며칠들아 나와 자시 있네요 기왕하마랑 하죠 삼바치에 벤치가 파마 제와치가 조고 데라서 와 탐치라 너무 와가 저 삼제요 와들 파트니 그 선다데 세리 파 괜히 누군가요 대위에 코로 삼제데 들어요 오다 코랑 알았어요 하면 들이대 매양 코로스라면 다 시장에 줄로 요래 시장은 이제 데레스는 들이 다다 치와 속을 인차 들이 세도 구질을 인차 들이 동나설 인차 대대가 제대로 동행나 만나서 리차를 보는 연구요래 데레스는 들이 다다 대상체라 나온다 강 임바 대상체 아주 삼제체로 도리 삼들이 랑상 시장의 형토고요래 세상 당보랑네 책도고 무슨 대다와서 보내들이 가래 담보 뭐 제겠어요. 정신 상주 밤만 제가 적장을 봐. 와서 자나. 들이 무슨 양설을 바꿔도 되고서 야만 로페나 남들다 데라서 와노랑 같으나 맞지 레용나 맞지로 펜스이다 깨양 마시고 마음 마시고 거기서 소박하게 이거래. 막디 봐라. 사고도 세자와서 뭐지 턱을 빼 거기서 너그 요래. 내가 장자치라 오다 나사고네라서 봐. 싸움을 요래데 나사고네 잠시 레게 들어가면은 거쳐고요 말이. 빼는 거 소리라. 나사 데리 독감에 배들 저기 나사 이 남자들이 로니실 남자들이 카포르트 같이 맞다 탐지 다다 요래 마야 요래 뭐지나 zem고를 상달은 거 고치야요 말이지. 동문에 저 렉슨으로 요래. 저 렉이다 되게 혹시 렉이 되어와요나 찐다다 어디나 사든 말 랩송스 가로 저스면 찐 똑똑하더니 용야요 말이 저서 남용 요래. 저고 라사모당 그 진짜는 다다 펜션 돌아 삼바당 이게 원이 진짜지 자담지는 sepat에서 야채를 넣어요. 내가 삼바 야채와 산속 생겼고 홍도 샘도 넣고 노도 중중만들라. 오, 나 롱바들라 세와지구나. 대수 채를 넣어요. 약합들 세워 데리치와. 드리고니 샘지에서 저 파마마지 와서 정말 드리고니 뭐바 매버세 와시 와서 이거를 기록밖에 쓴 거를 미 제베트 진진에서 진에서 제와들 뭐바 용 말이. 너는 샘지 탐지 동계를 안기는 나쁘게 가르쳐 샘지 그 첩. 대샘지 그 첩아서 레상 박사 동계 첩디요래. 상 맞이죠 바로 동계 잡아요 말이. 대회는 때도 동해에서 쌌니? 동해진이 뭐라? 이제 리직께는 어디 쌈좀 잡아래. 대회 sem을 대에다가 잡아 야채를 똥. 오, 뭐 총총선은 근데 아 지와 한번 보지요를 왔어야. 야, 요늘도 지와 말한 거 보지요를 왔어. 들문이 셈 소화를 냈고요. 제가 밑에 셈을 돌아. 그래 제가 소화를 냈고요. 제가 때는 여자한테 싸웠더니 니마 맨하고 아까는 무서웠다 이윤이 가요면이야. 우리 매일 책이 오나 어디 파마마지 진짜 연말이 삼삼지 제와리 샤트쿠요래. 사지 가세 말이 우리 남용 강야면 남용도 제윤이 전부도 대회 가와서 서바지고 라는 나기 몇살도 고독하지 가요를 가지 막아요나 로봇지네스 데를 막아서라 샤군을 말해 들 나바사지의 주대실 가든테다 그래. 최소삼지에 대해서 라를 레다 박사 나사라고 해서 와. 무속을 내래. 때려서 하는 것도 것들이 대삼지 레긴 걸 파요. 들이 가자 되라. 고토들 나나. 가자 되다 유모모죠. 가가지 거래. 가자 되 대식 거래. 대식 뭐라고 유모모지가 요 말이. 라가 대식 거래 유모모 요 말이. 가자지 로버를 찌래. 사지 좀 되게 sem지 남는 상징이 혼자 로버를 좀 해지. 대회들이 로버트만 이렇게 깨적 말이 상대야 깨적 말이 얘네들이 상징이 산촉성이 어디 가래 상징이 단에서 되지 와처럼 탐지라 내가 돌이게 되와 내가 통고를 다통 사지 공부 내가 통고를 소리 기바데 산촉성도 쏘던 맞다와지 산속성도 소니 강가지 산속성 가오요리 소는 내가 리처를 나오니 진강을 통나 제체적으로 열도요리 산속성이 야요 말이 선대 말잖아 근데 다다 잡이 피용래요 강 소왕이 봐 인지 잡세 다니에서 상마제저 받을 잡고요 강그 잡고 세와도 잡고요 제와들이 짠들하게 제와들 진짜 뭐래. 대회 제와들 정도들이 많은 데서 돈은 많은 과다냐 생기 탐지 주네. 이는 제와들랑 필요 없으면 드린 공항보나 탐지는 삽발도 사지 진색도 뭐는 사족선 중족 zam도 뭐나 다 탐지 저저만 마모도 하정 가르친 거리 이 책을 좀 치는 내가 치고요래 대답이 라미 이 그냥 냠이 맞는 그래서 좀 뭐람 삼몽 잠주 요요 건설다 보면 하다 탐도 좀 탈림이 잡는 남바 탐제들이 로트고요리 자기가 제말이 대삼제 로트나 들이 로트는 책동을 요발이 말이 쓰면 잘그리 하자고 용치버리 김보나 남다서 뭐라고 거들 로제를 보여래 곧 같이 보여래
And then so that is the second point, the second cause, the accumulation of merit and purification of obscurations. And then thirdly is the condition, which is the prayer, the aspiration prayer. And that is very important because it is due to the aspiration that in fact the Buddha's teachings exist in this world. The Buddha Shakyamuni appeared in this world and he taught the Dharma. And these teachings still remain, and there are many who practice and follow those teachings and who benefit sentient beings extensively. That is the kindness of the Buddha Shakyamuni. That is the Buddha Shakyamuni's aspiration prayer. The Buddha Shakyamuni was said to have made 500 significant aspiration prayers. And of all the Buddhas, he is very special, his activities are very extensive. For example, we can see in this world, no matter how many obstacles and negative conditions the Buddha Dharma encounters, nobody can destroy it. It is more like pouring oil in the fire. You can't extinguish it that way. It will make it glow even stronger. So even though there are many obstacles that the Dharma encountered, the Buddha teachings still spread widely and nobody could ever destroy the teachings. And that is due to the power of the Buddha's aspiration. It is very powerful. And in the same way, we should make our own aspirations. We make our aspirations by understanding the cause of merit. And so some people understand that, and for some it is harder to understand. But in brief, if you make an aspiration, and normally our aspirations are limited. We do have love and we do have compassion, but what comes up in our mind is our family and friends and so on, which also is a good thing to do, a good starting point, because that love is what will bring benefit. So first, we understand that with our limited capacity of love. We understand that. What we first understand is the benefit of love, that it will bring benefit to others and also ourselves. And then we must increase our love. First of all, our love is very weak, and also it is mixed with self-concern. So it is a faulty love, an impure love. So we need to eliminate this fault of selfishness and cultivate great and pure love. And that we do by the skillful means that the Buddha had taught us. For example, we can begin with thinking about anyone that we love very much, and then consider that we have taken on lifetime after lifetime, countless lifetimes in the past, since beginningless time in samsara. And therefore, we have had parents in each of those lifetimes. Therefore, there cannot be a single being who has not been our parent or our friends. And even those who don't like us, like our enemies in this life, actually have been an extremely kind family member, a parent or a friend. Especially those who now appear as enemies in a past life have been someone that loved us very much, somebody that was extremely kind to us, like our parent or our friend. And while they were kind to me, I in turn treated them with harshness. I hurt them, I killed them or abused them. And so all this samsaric love that they have had for me has changed. And we can see how it changes, because when we love someone, it is conditional. So we think, for example, I love him, but if he would not love me, I also would not love him anymore. So our love easily changes into hatred, resentment. And then in future lifetimes, those beings manifest as our karmic creditors, those who cause harm to our life, if we have hurt their life, or those who arise as those who beat us or abuse us, or they arise in the form of sickness, causing sickness and hurt. All of these are the karmic creditors appearing in this life. So whenever you encounter such a karmic creditor or somebody who doesn't like you or an enemy, then you should think that this actually was a very dear friend in a past life. And if you think in this way, then immediately the anger will go away if you only bring that to mind. And then slowly, as you practice, you will be able to see all beings in that way. So in the beginning, we cultivate like a concept-bound love, like it has an object. For example, we think that all beings have been my parents. And first we need to understand, and then we put this understanding into practice. We practice that with regard to whoever we encounter, wherever you go. For example, you go on an airport, and whoever you encounter, even if you don't know them personally, still there is a special feeling that arises. You feel that they have been your parents or your friends in a past life. So you want to go there and give them a hug. Of course, in Western countries, you easily offend people by doing that, because people are very careful about the hygiene, and they don't want everybody to touch them because they think it will make them sick. They might contract a contagious disease. But actually, the truth is, if you do not have a karmic connection to that, you cannot actually contract anything. It all depends on the karma. For example, I myself, we were in prison for 20 years. We spent a same space with like mates that had the worst disease, like tuberculosis. And still, I did not contract it. I'm still here now. And in fact, they also still are alive. So, of course, this being said, we need to be careful about our hygiene, and we need to, of course, protect and be clean. But at the same time, we need to understand that if we do not have the karmic connection, also we will not encounter a condition. So it begins with the cause, that is our karmas, our obscurations, our negativities. And that leads to the condition, that is the obstacles, the sickness, and so forth. And it is those conditions that we normally blame without understanding the causes. Actually, without the cause, a condition cannot really do anything to you. And so that is my own personal experience. So think about the causes. Also, thinking about causes, cultivate love and compassion. The greater your compassion, the broader your mind, the broader your bodhicitta. So it begins on a small scale. You cultivate to whatever extent you're able. For example, if you feel at least love for your city, then increase that love, then it becomes that great. If you have love for your city, then expand it to your country. And if you have love for your country, then expand it to all sentient beings. Until ultimately you find that there is not a single being who has not been my parents. And eventually it develops into unobjectified love. Like in a prayer by the Gelugpa, it says that praises Chenrezig and says, you are the great compassionate one, the great loving one with unconditioned great compassion, Chenrezig. So that is unobjectified. And that compassion extends to all beings. And sentient beings are as limitless as space. Wherever there is space, there are sentient beings. Wherever there are sentient beings, there is suffering and affliction. And until they attain enlightenment, there will be suffering. So such should be the extent of our aspiration, of our bodhicitta. So think about the suffering of beings and cultivate compassion. That makes the mind broad and vast. So then you have a special feeling, with regard to whomever you encounter. For example, you see a little child, then you think that, oh, this was my child in a past life. Or you see like a young person, and then you feel that this was my friend in a last life, and so on. So every time you practice this way, you have a feeling of love arising in your heart. And this is how I have practiced over and over again. And now, even though I do not have many good qualities, but whoever I meet, I have this feeling of love for them, and knowing that they all really have been my family, my parents. So this is actually the greatest quality to experience, because wherever I go, I feel happy. And wherever I go, I have friends. And even sometimes if people do not like me, I still think that this is just a temporary condition that arises. This is not who they really are. So even if they don't like me, I do not feel upset about that. I just know that this is also the karma. And this is not really who the person is. So it is really very significant to understand the Buddha's teachings, to understand karma. So when that happens, when you encounter such a person, or when you experience sickness or any other problem, you will be able to let go of that thought and understand that this is my karma. And you will not get angry at other people. If they get angry at you, you will still be able to separate the person from the affliction. Because even if that person is angry, his Buddha nature is not angry, is not afflicted. And in the same way, your own Buddha nature is never afflicted. It is just a temporary condition, a temporary fault. Like the Buddha had said, within all beings is the Buddha. Beings are just obscured by temporary stains. So it is only a moment, it is momentary, a momentary fault. And likewise, our compassion also is momentary. So think about the qualities of bodhicitta, of love and compassion. It will lead to birth in the higher realms from lifetime to lifetime, and ultimately to the state of enlightenment. So if you consider the preciousness of bodhicitta, you really come to a point where you can regard bodhicitta as even more precious than one's own life, your own life force. Because your own life is just like a water bubble. It comes and it goes. It is temporary. The life is unstable. But bodhicitta is something that will go beyond this life, and we will not lose it. So it is more beneficial. This is also what we learn when we take refuge. Because bodhicitta is your true and trustworthy source of refuge, of protection, from this day onward until attaining enlightenment. What will really protect you is actually your own love. So that is something you should cherish and keep in mind. And if you keep this in mind, if you only read a single Mani mantra and think of all sentient beings, this love will actually pervade them all. And this love, as it pervades them all, will benefit them, and it will benefit yourself. And this is the perfect dedication. And this is also the purpose of all of the various dedication prayers that we recite. For instance, we recite the prayer for excellent conduct, or we read the Bodhicharya Vatara dedication prayer, or we read the prayer to be born in Dewachen, or the Samantabhadra prayer. Many of these prayers have been translated into different languages so that you can understand their meaning. Because when you understand their meaning, each and every time you read them, you get a more profound understanding of each and every word. Every word in itself is very powerful, any word of those prayers. And that is why we always recite those prayers. And these are special prayers that actually are practiced in all the Buddhist lineages without any bias around the world, because they represent the authentic words of the Buddha himself. And so each and every word that you read of these prayers, each and every day, will deepen your understanding. So these prayers are called prayers of pure aspiration. And because they are pure, you should read them as much as you can.
Genuba is long. You did it, you did it, Mengta. That's how you talk to your courage. Nangbazi Yeni Zongzi. Man of Hatan, the same thing of your local. Simply getting back to Tingy. Today, major Basaman, no Hatan, the same thing of the TV. That's how the Sanjay pop in the Wachaki. The waiting that the charity Huamuna, that my look.
Tinala.
Ole. The one said law. Each law getting bottom to each other, getting by something like this. Not get you by enough, simply Tiagoras. They are the top watch Zubagoras. They are the Zubagian, you don't eat something particular and do your tea, Tavancine, also Tama get you by his. Madame Jarod.
And so the power of the Sangha is great, and it is said that if only 4 Sangha members come together, we can call that an assembly or a division of Sangha. And why is it so powerful? It is because the assembly of Sangha, in whichever Buddhist tradition, recite a prayer, say a prayer for all Mother Sentient beings. And this is also what they have in mind. And that is why it is so powerful, because by making these aspirations, they connect to the power of all the Buddha's minds. So we will now read together a dedication prayer in our prayer book. And I thank you all, the Sangha here. And it is actually very important that you regard yourself as a Sangha, like having a pride in being a Sangha. And what it means to be a Sangha is to have love for sentient beings, and then to have patience, a patience which protects this love. Basically, even though the Sangha has many different qualities, they all are subsumed within love and patience. And so we all are a Sangha. And now we shall read our aspiration dedication prayers. How do you usually do it? How do you usually do it? In English, yeah? Just everything from page 9, right? So in the yellow prayer book on page 9, Doche Chang, Tilopam, Naropam, Marpam, Milarepam, Dharmalot Gambopa, Pangmodropa, and Lord Jikumba, please bestow upon us the most auspicious blessing of all the Kagyu Lamas. By this virtue may I achieve omniscience, by defeating all enemies' confusion. May all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health. I pray that the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activities spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. As Manjushri the warrior realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all the merit for all sentient beings. By the blessing of the Buddha who attained the three kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit. By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Drikungpa Ratnashri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind, root, and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, yogins, yoginis, and dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May thoughts of fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such, and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. For this realm, encircled by snow-covered mountains, you are the source of every benefit and bliss without exception. Tenzin Gyatso, you who are one with Avalokiteshvara, may you remain steadfast until samsara's end. You are the embodiment of all the precious ones. You, a great being, are the holder and promoter of the teachings of the Shakya lion. Your perfect actions are for the liberation of sentient beings. May you, the Chetsun Lama, whose enlightened activities are spontaneously present, live long. Precious holder of the triple gem of Drikungpa, who preserves the indisputable practice of the profound Dharma, who has realized the sublime truth which reveals peace and illumination, may you who relieve the suffering of limitless beings live long. The one known in the Holy Land as Arya Deva, emanated into the Gar clan of eastern Tibet as Chudingpa, the heart son of Chigden Gompo. May the life of glorious Garchen remain steadfast for 100 eons. In this age of strife, when the victor's teaching faces hardship, through his powerful Vajra-like conduct, he takes on himself the heavy responsibility of the unbiased teaching. May Garchen, the son of the teachings, live long. You who are richly endowed with the glorious wealth of Dharma knowledge, who through reflecting and meditating have actualized the self-aware absolute reality, and shine with the 100,000 light rays of ethical discipline of the Buddha Dharma, may you, Khenchen Ratna Dwaza, live long. You possess the repository of the essence teachings of the past supreme siddhas. You, the precious Gunchok, are the refuge of all beings. You are the treasure trove of all the wish-fulfilling Norvus. May you, Druang Guncho Norvu, I supplicate you. Throughout devotion, virtue, and excellence, and the vast power of the three roots and Dharma protectors, may the life of the Lama, the glorious protector, hold steadfast. May the Lama's enlightened activities unceasingly flourish throughout the 10 directions. Your 1,000 arms are the 1,000 Chakravartin kings. Your 1,000 eyes are the 1,000 Buddhas of this fortunate era. I prostrate to the Venerable Chenrezig, who shows whatever is needed to subdue those to be subdued.
고바 제자마르바 대사라 고바요. I will thank you.